Now, Republican Representative Jason Chaffetz is not a fan of entitlements. And he thinks Americans need to work harder, quit complaining, and expecting the government to give them handouts. He doesn't want the government to pay for everything. He says, no, we need to have a smaller government because smaller government is better. We got to save the taxpayer money. Okay, well, look, that's a normal conservative argument, and seems to have been very consistent on it. Or not. Now, for him, actually, he thinks entitlements for him are awesome. And for you, no, they're not awesome. In fact, they're so fantastic, he thinks they're so great, that he's actually asking for another one. According to the Huffington Post, Chaffetz is calling on Congress to grant legislators an additional $2,500 monthly stipend for housing. For housing. He's like, man, I need some money. Hey, why don't you give me some extra cash? Look, I got to pay for housing in D.C. In fact, here's this quote. He says, I really do believe Congress would be much better served if there was a housing allowance for members of Congress. Washington, D.C. is one of the most expensive places in the world, and I flat out cannot afford a mortgage in Utah, kids in college, and a second place here in Washington, D.C. Oh, boo. Oh, what's the matter, Jason? Is a housing too expensive for you? Sad. Why don't you just take your own advice and get a second job if you want to, if you want to afford this stuff, instead of relying on government handouts. I mean, you hate entitlements, right? You're asking for an entitlement from the government. The irony here. Okay. Now, here's the thing, right? How much is it going to cost the taxpayer? Again, Republicans always bring out, but it's going to cost the taxpayer money. We can't make the taxpayer spend more money on stuff we don't need. Well, how much is this housing allowance, right? Well, the additional spending that Chaffetz is proposing would cost $30,000 a year with just him alone. Now, look, I know a lot of people who work their asses off. They don't even make $30,000 a year. For a long time, I still don't make $30,000 a year. Okay? At patreon.com/TOTNation. That's all I'm saying. I don't make that much money. This guy's asking for it on top of his salary, which I'm going to get to as well. But as far as the cost goes, it's not just for him. It's for all members of Congress. Well, there's 435 members of the House, which he's a part of until he retires, and 100 senators. Add that all up, and you get $16 million a year just to fund a congressional housing stipend. Now, something that you got to remember too, not so much the House, but the Senate is actually made up of mostly millionaires. So that's another fact to consider. They're already tremendously wealthy. But no, we got to get taxpayer money, getting an extra $16 million to come out of your pockets to fund our houses. Oh, because it's so expensive in Washington, D.C., I do declare. Hey, man, entitlements for you. We can't afford it, but entitlements for me, gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm at the trough. But again, you could claim that, hey, man, Jeff, look, you're being a little too unfair to Congress. I mean, yeah, it is expensive. Fair enough. Hey, I know it's expensive in D.C., but it's not like we don't also pay Congress extremely well. In fact, members of Congress earn $174,000 a year. So, and look, House leaders and Senate leaders actually get paid even more than just $174,000. That's the base pay. Look, if you want to, if you want to actually help, there's a lot of congressional staffers that don't make nearly that much at all. They could actually use the help. They're doing most of the work anyway. So, hey, if you think, hey, man, let's go help the congressional staffers out. Okay, we'll think about it, right? No, let's not help the staffers. Let's help us. Us who already get paid $174,000 a year, plus whatever the lobbyists pay us. It's ridiculous. Again, do you know how much the median pay here is in America for an average American worker? It's $50,000 a year, right? And again, a lot of Americans work their asses off. They don't get anywhere near close to the stipend, to that $2,500 that Jason Chaffetz is just asking for in free government money from us. And yet he is the guy, by the way, back when we, started talking about healthcare, he was the guy who said this.
Well, we're getting rid of the individual mandate. We're getting rid of those things that people said that they don't want. And you know what? Americans have choices, and they've got to make a choice. And so maybe rather than getting that new iPhone that they just love and they want to go spend hundreds of dollars on that, maybe they should invest in their own health care. They've got to make those decisions themselves.
Man, they should just, make better decisions. They got to make those choices, man. Maybe instead of, I don't know, spending money on your kids in college or spending money on a home, you should just, I don't know, or spending money on an iPhone, you should spend money on a home instead. You should make better choices. You got to make better choices. Look, that's one of the most egregious examples, of course. And he walked it back later, yada, yada. But look, overall, there's a lot of examples of not just him, but him and other Republicans being dicks to poor people. Telling them to, oh man, you got to make better choices. See, the choices that you're making are terrible. If you want health care, if you want housing, if you want wages, you know what? You got to stop eating avocado toast. You got to stop buying iPhones and invest in your own health care. Got to make the hard choices, Chaffetz. Look, guys like this, they don't care if your family suffers. I don't know if you know this, or at least I don't know if he knows this, that healthcare costs more than an iPhone. And that housing for a lot of people is very expensive. In fact, there is no place in America where somebody working a minimum wage job can afford a home on their own. Are you going to go out and tell those people? Actually, he did. You're going to tell those people that, oh, you just need to make better choices. No, that's what he did for healthcare. That's what he's doing for housing. Well, Jason, how about you make better choices? How about you make better choices? And you make a sacrifice. How about that? Again, guys like this, they see your family struggle, and with their stagnant wages and the price of homes that are rising beyond control, and they think, man, who cares? Here's some fucking bootstraps. And then when they need something, well, they're the first ones to line up and feed at the taxpayer-funded trough. You want to talk about entitlements? That's entitlement. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.